Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. You brought us a book called Great Sex Games,
That's right.
and it looks like it's just packed with ideas for, well, spicing things up, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real collection of concepts for enhancing intimacy, adding some playfulness.
So our mission today is basically to unpack some of these ideas, see what's intriguing, what's surprising maybe,
Mm.
but staying really grounded in what the book actually says. We're not, endorsing anything here, just exploring the content.
Absolutely. We're just looking at the source material, and it covers a lot of ground. Role-playing, using props, setting moods, even tying things into special occasions.
Okay, so let's get a feel for the range.
Mm.
You mentioned role-playing, things like goddess and priest, and the opera singer.
Yeah, those are in there. Then there's a whole section on using props, a binding agreement, loving with mirrors.
Listen to my tape. Sounds mysterious.
Right. And even like playing strip poker, but maybe with a twist.
And it goes beyond just specific games, right?
Yeah.
Like themed encounters.
Totally. Things like at his expense, which seems to touch on power dynamics, and the influence of music with if music be the food of love, or using notes and gifts.
Writing love notes, dreaming up sexy gifts.
Yeah, and connecting remotely to telephone sex, sex on the net.
Wow, it really covers a lot. I see things like suntan wrestling
Uh-huh. A bit playful.
inside the small hotel,
Yeah.
which sounds kind of narrative. Adventures like in your automobile, on your bike.
And there's a really important safety note on that bike one about ventilation in a garage. Definitely need to mention that.
Good point.
Okay.
And love on the beach, food themes with games for gourmets, even experimenting with aphrodisiacs and a fantasy
It's
picnic.
incredibly varied. Plus, a whole section on special times, birthdays, anniversaries, Valentine's.
Even May Day and Thanksgiving.
Seems so. And it wraps up with a lucky dip idea. And then there are these dead time stories.
Like an unspun version Cinderella. Definitely not the Disney one, I'm guessing.
Probably not. And something called the love game. Plus, really crucial stuff on safety, early warning systems, and practicalities like using condoms.
Okay, quite the spectrum indeed. So let's dig into some specifics, starting with role-playing. That goddess and priest one sounds interesting.
Yeah, it really sets up a specific power dynamic, doesn't it? One person is the worshipped goddess, the other is a priest completely devoted to her pleasure.
And the key is the priest asks permission for everything.
Exactly, every touch, every action, and the goddess just says yes or no. No explanation needed.
That's a very defined structure. Exploring power, maybe? Even symbolically?
I think so. It can reveal things perhaps about desires or dynamics already present in a relationship, you know?
And the book suggests setting a whole scene. Rose-scented bath, candles, champagne.
Yeah, really building that atmosphere of reverence. Even offering to wash the goddess's hair.
It's all about that focused attention then.
Completely. The priest's role is solely focused on the goddess's experience or sensations. His own desires aren't part of this particular game.
Right. It's about service in that role.
Mm-hmm. Devotion to the other's pleasure.
Okay, then shifting gears. The opera singer. Sounds more theatrical,
A bit, yeah. It's like a singing lesson set up.
where one partner directs the other and mistakes lead to punishment. I'm using air quotes there.
Right. Punishments. The dynamic is more like a stern teacher and a student. The instructions get harder pitch, rhythm, even nonsensical stuff.
So the mistakes are sort of built in.
Seems like it. And the structure of mistake consequence is the framework for exploring maybe control and submission, but in a lighter way, perhaps.
And the punishment's removing clothes, maybe a spank, but it says combine it with gentle stroking.
Yeah, so even within that sort of discipline aspect, there's still sensuality, still connection. It's not meant to be harsh, it seems.
It's an interesting mix, that control and playfulness.
Definitely. The absurdity of the instructions, the clear rules. It could create a space that feels safe, maybe even funny, for exploring dominance.
Okay, moving on. Playing with props. At his expense sounds like it goes into more intense territory.
Yeah, this one seems to focus directly on power dynamics, teasing, being tied up, and specifically verbal domination.
Humiliation is arousal.
For some people, yes. The book apparently gives examples of things to say aimed at creating vulnerability, surrender.
That sounds like something requiring immense trust.
Absolutely. And clear boundaries. The potential for causing real distress is high if you don't know your partner extremely well.
And there's a safeguard note mentioned.
Yes, which is crucial. It advises really assessing your partner, talking about comfort levels before even thinking about trying verbal domination.
So important. What's exciting for one could be awful for another.
Exactly. Consent and understanding boundaries are paramount, especially here.
Okay. Then a binding agreement. This is spanking games, but with a twist.
Yeah, the twist seems to be that the rules can change unexpectedly.
So the person being spanked can't really win.
That seems to be the idea. It introduces unpredictability, keeps them slightly off balance. It's less about genuine frustration, more about disrupting routine, creating that playful power imbalance.
And there's an example game. Thank you.
Right. The spanked partner says thank you after each stroke, but then there are penalties if they forget or aren't enthusiastic enough.
Or too enthusiastic.
Apparently, it sounds like a kind of playful, maybe slightly humorous torment.
And safety advice again. Removing rings, testing intensity.
Yes, the book seems pretty consistent about including those reminders, which is good. Even in play, well-being first.
Definitely. Okay, loving with mirrors. A different vibe entirely. Exhibitionism, voyeurism.
Exactly. Using mirrors strategically to heighten the visual aspect, making the intimate act something to be watched either by yourself or your partner.
So like pretending the mirror is a window. That has a thrill, I guess.
Yeah, that voyeuristic element. Or angling it so you can watch yourself during lovemaking. It's about shared vulnerability, maybe seeing yourself differently.
Yeah, and anatomy lessons using mirrors. That sounds educational.
Huh, maybe. But also about conscious awareness, seeing the body's responses, exploring erogenous zones visually.
It brings a very deliberate visual focus to it.
It does. And for someone who enjoys exhibitionism, it's a very direct way to feel seen, admired.
Then listen to my tape. This sounds like it requires huge trust.
Oh, absolutely. One partner sets everything up, blindfolds the other.
And plays a pre-recorded tape of instructions.
Yeah. Suggestive instructions, erotic plans. The person on the tape dictates the whole experience.
Wow, total surrender.
Complete trust, yeah. The blindfolded partner is totally reliant on the voice, the instructions, creates anticipation, vulnerability.
And not knowing exactly what's coming next.
Adds to the intensity, right? It's about letting go completely, being guided by your partner's fantasy spoken aloud.
That's a powerful concept. Deep intimacy required there.
For sure.
Okay, let's shift to themed encounters and special occasions. If music be the food of love, the impact of music.
Right. This is about consciously choosing music to shape the mood. Classical, opera, jazz, different genres for different feelings.
It highlights how much sensory input affects us, doesn't it?
Definitely. Music isn't just background noise. It can really influence our emotional and physical state.
And there's a fascinating fact about Baroque music and Mozart, possibly impacting sex like it impacts learning.
Yeah, suggesting it might trigger similar brain patterns. It's an intriguing idea, connecting those things.
It really underlines music as an active tool for intimacy, often overlooked.
Very true.
Writing love notes, the power of the written word.
Yeah, building anticipation, excitement, even when you're apart. Simple notes on a car or more elaborate themed invitations.
I like the idea of using a classified ad format.
Yeah.
Playful.
Kind of funny, right? And it mentions electronic notes, too, bringing it up to date.
It's a good reminder that seduction can happen in many ways. Words are potent.
Incredibly potent, on paper or screen.
Dreaming up sexy gifts. This one categorizes gifts by relationship stage. Sounds a bit formulaic.
Huh. It does have a humorous, pragmatic feel, like start with books or flowers.
Okay, standard it up.
But then it progresses. Champagne, body paint maybe,
Getting Warner?
and culminates apparently with things like a giant double dildo when the friendship is, quote, off the wall.
Okay. That's quite a progression.
It definitely illustrates how gifts might change as intimacy and maybe explicitness grow.
It really highlights needing to know your partner's comfort level, right?
Absolutely. Gauging the dynamic, what's going to be exciting versus maybe awkward.
Yeah. Okay, telephone sex. Specific rules for remote intimacy.
Right. Privacy is key, obviously. And being truthful, graphic in descriptions.
Creating that vivid experience despite the distance.
Exactly. Painting a picture with words. Being detailed about your own sensations, desires. That's crucial.
And to suggest self-stimulation while describing it.
Yeah, to bring the partner into the experience more immediately, it's all about using language and imagination to bridge that gap.
Creating a shared moment just through sound and mind.
Precisely.
Sex on the net builds on that. Webcams involved.
Yeah, adding the visual element for geographically separated partners, but the core rules are similar. Be natural, communicate openly.
Despite the camera.
Right. Don't let it make things stilted. Follow the same ideas as telephone sex, but now visually too.
And it notes paid arousal through webcams exists.
Yeah, just mentioning that impersonal side of things exists as a contrast to the focus on connection between partners.
Right, highlighting the spectrum. Okay, suntan wrestling. This sounds purely playful.
Very much so, it seems. Skimpy swimwear, maybe a mask, lots of suntan oil.
And wrestling, but not seriously.
Not at all. Best of three falls, maybe handicaps. The emphasis is on the sensuous feel, the physical contact, not winning.
The slithering around is the point, not the pin.
Exactly. It's about that playful, slippery, sensuous contact.
Got it. Inside the small hotel, this is more of a story.
Yeah, a narrative scenario. A woman dressing provocatively under a coat to meet a lover in a hotel.
Focusing on the thrill of maybe being seen.
Right. That clandestine feeling, the heightened excitement of secrecy, potential exposure. It builds anticipation.
The allure of the forbidden, maybe?
Perhaps. Sharpens senses from the secrecy.
In your automobile. Couple of options here.
Yeah, one is backseat driving. Front seat passenger pleasures the backseat one.
Okay, unusual focus.
And the other is a nostalgic drive-in movie thing. 1940s style romance.
So different vibes in the same confined space.
Giving pleasure in an odd spot or evoking nostalgia.
And then on your bike, a Lady Godiva game on a motorcycle. Or in a closed garage with the engine running.
That's where the big caution comes in.
Right. Carbon monoxide. Absolutely crucial warning about ventilation.
Paramount. Adventurous ideas are one thing. Safety is non-negotiable.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, love on the beach. Two scenarios again.
Yeah. One is voyeurism, watching someone secretly. The other is exhibitionism, a woman entering the water provocatively, pretending not to notice attention.
Playing with being seen or seeing unseen.
Exactly. The arousal of the observer or the thrill of drawing eyes subtly.
Games for gourmets. Food and sex connection.
Yeah, emphasizing the sensuality of food tastes, textures, offering food as caring, playful feeding during foreplay.
Integrating those senses. Feeding each other can be quite intimate.
Very much so. Nurturing.
And there's a weird, did you know?
Yeah.
About Turkish harems and cucumbers.
Oh, yes. Forbidden unless sliced. Certainly. Memorable trivia.
Shows how everyday things get tied up in weird historical rules about intimacy, I guess.
Right.
Experimenting with aphrodisiacs.
Yeah.
Discusses things believed to boost desire.
Yeah. Oysters, champagne, caviar, ginseng, chocolate. The usual suspects.
But with warnings.
Yes, crucial warnings about things like Spanish fly or yohimbine being potentially dangerous or ineffective, and practical stuff like being careful with chilies on skin.
Good balance there. Acknowledging the lore but stressing safety. Fantasy picnic. Sounds evocative. Woman alone in a forest.
Vulnerable, seemingly. Then a fully dressed stranger appears with a picnic.
Intriguing setup.
Plays on vulnerability, surprise, the unexpected. The contrast in attire adds to the mystery.
Okay, and finally, games for special times, using celebrations.
Right, linking intimacy to meaningful occasions to create new memories, add variety.
But be sensitive to your partner.
Definitely. The action tip stresses sensitivity, but also being open to celebrating this way.
And the examples are really diverse. Birthday personas.
Pretending to meet again on an anniversary.
Pampering on Valentine's. Testing sexual apparatus on May Day. That's specific.
It is, rather. Humorous roleplay for Thanksgiving. Hot massage for Christmas Chinooka.
And the lucky dip bag of commands. Random fun.
It really shows a lot of creative ways to use those occasions as a spark.
It does indeed. Okay, let's look at these bedtime stories. The unspun version Cinderella. Uh-oh.
Yeah, definitely not the Disney version like you said. It's described as sexually explicit.
Focusing on the physical encounter. With the prince's friend.
Apparently. And embarrassment, revelations about lost. Undergarments, not a slipper.
Right, taking a familiar story and giving it a very adult physical focus.
It's a provocative twist, for sure. Playing with expectations.
Then the love game. A webcam competition about love.
Yeah, but the couple starts out admitting they aren't in love, they're just in it for the prize. Okay.
But as they perform intimate acts for the camera and a love-ometer, they apparently fool the machine, suggesting maybe real intimacy developed unexpectedly.
Huh. That raises interesting questions, doesn't it? About performing intimacy versus feeling it, or maybe one leading to the other.
Exactly. Can engaging physically, even for show, spark genuine connection? It's a surprising outcome in the story.
And finally, the really crucial safety parts. Early warning systems and using condoms.
Absolutely fundamental. Early warning systems covers consent, ongoing consent, avoiding illegal stuff or non-consenting third parties, open communication.
And practical hygiene.
Yes, genital hygiene, fresh breath, basic but essential respect and care. Non-negotiable stuff.
And using condoms gives practical tips.
Yeah, encouraging experimentation with different types, keeping them handy, practicing application, even making it part of foreplay.
So normalizing it, making it part of the pleasure, not separate from it.
Exactly. Positive, practical advice for safer sex. Well, that was quite the tour through great sex games. It really is a diverse collection of ideas.
It really is. The source material you shared definitely paints a picture of a book trying to cover a huge range of possibilities for playfulness and intimacy.
From structured role play to props to themes. It's a lot.
Injecting novelty, excitement.
And just to reiterate for everyone listening, this deep dive was based purely on the book's content you brought us.
Yeah.
We're exploring the ideas impartially.
You're right. No personal endorsements here, just looking at what's presented in the source.
Our goal was just to, unpack those concepts.
Illuminate what's in there.
So as we wrap up this exploration, maybe a final thought for our listeners to ponder. How might exploring these different ideas, even just thinking about them, how might that change our understanding?
Yeah, like how does looking at different perspectives on intimacy, on play, broaden our view of human desire, human connection?
Right. Was there an idea today, maybe an unexpected one, that particularly resonated or made you think? And what further thoughts might that spark about intimacy and all the different ways we connect?